Karen didn't like my birdhouse, so I built a tiny Airbnb for birds. When Karen, the HOA's self-appointed dictator, stormed my yard waving a citation and calling my birdhouse a trashy eyesore, I knew she'd picked the wrong fight. Her leopard print blouse and venomous glare were no match for my love of birds and my knack for building things. By the time I was done, my front yard would be a feathered paradise, and Karen would be the one squawking. I'm Mia, a 30-something graphic designer who traded city life for a quiet corner of Maple Grove, a suburban maze of identical houses and nosy neighbors. My little ranch-style home is my sanctuary, with a front yard bursting with wildflowers and a single oak tree where I hung a wooden birdhouse I'd made myself. It wasn't fancy, just a cedar box with a slanted roof, painted blue to match the sky. Every morning, sparrows and finches flocked to it, their chirps like music. The kids next door loved watching them, and even grumpy Mrs. Larson across the street said it brightened her day. But Karen, she saw my birdhouse as a personal insult. Karen moved in 6 months ago, a whirlwind of complaints and HOA power trips. She's the kind of woman who'd fine you for a crooked mailbox and then brag about it at book club. Her lawn is a sterile green carpet, her house a shrine to beige, and her mission is to make everyone as miserable as her taste in decor. She'd already fined half the block for minor infractions, but my birdhouse became her obsession. It's tacky, she'd sneer, as if her leopard print wardrobe was high fashion. I ignored her at first, thinking she'd move on. Big mistake. It started with a nasty note taped to my door. Unauthorized structure violates HOA Rule 32A. Remove immediately or face a $300 fine. I laughed it off, $300 for a birdhouse? But then Karen escalated. One Saturday, I was refilling the feeder when she marched over, her flip-flops slapping like a war cry. Mia, she barked, thrusting a citation in my face. Your hideous birdhouse is lowering property values. It's coming down, or I'll have it removed myself. I was stunned. The birdhouse was on my property, securely fastened, and barely visible from the street. Karen, I said, keeping calm, it's a birdhouse, not a junkyard. The neighbors love it. Her eyes glinted. The board agrees with me. You're done. I was livid. This wasn't about aesthetics. It was about control. Karen thrived on bullying people into submission, and I was her latest target. That night, I paced my living room, fuming. I wasn't going to let this petty tyrant ruin my yard. Fighting the HOA directly was pointless. They'd back Karen just to avoid her tantrums. Then it hit me. If she hated one birdhouse, I'd give her a whole flock of them. Not just any birdhouses, a tiny HOA-approved Airbnb for birds. So spectacular, it'd make her head spin. I'd turn her complaint into a masterpiece. The idea was wild, but it felt right. My front yard had space for a multi-tiered birdhouse village, complete with colorful roofs and fairy lights. I'd seen DIY projects online, and I had tools, paint, and a stubborn streak. The HOA rules didn't ban birdhouses, only unsightly structures, which was subjective. If I made it beautiful and functional, Karen would have no case. But I needed help. I called my neighbor Jake, a carpenter who'd been fined by Karen for his garish porch swing. Mia, you're a legend, he laughed. I've got wood and nails. Let's do this. I also recruited Lila, an art teacher who could paint the houses to look like a fairy village. Even Mrs. Larson offered to bake cookies for our work sessions. The plan was set, and Karen was about to eat her words. Our kitchen table became mission control, littered with sketches, coffee mugs, and Lila's paint swatches. The plan was ambitious. A bird Airbnb with 5 miniature houses, each with a unique design, stacked on a custom wooden frame under my oak tree. We'd add tiny shingled roofs, windows painted on, and fairy lights to make it glow at night. The pièce de résistance? A seed dispenser rigged to drop treats for the birds, ensuring a constant flock. It'd be so beautiful even Karen couldn't call it tacky, and so popular she'd hate it. Your Christmas light display in Willow Creek inspired me. If you could turn a petty complaint into a neighborhood party, I could make Karen regret her citation. We scoured the HOA rulebook like detectives. Rule 32 say banned unsightly structures, but beauty was subjective, and birdhouses were explicitly allowed if well maintained. We'd make ours a work of art, with no grounds for complaints. To be safe, we filed a permit for a decorative garden feature, vague enough to cover our tracks. Jake suggested a low fence to keep kids from climbing, checking every safety box. Karen would come for us, but we'd be ready with receipts, photos, and a rule book to shove in her face. The next 10 days were a blur of sawdust and teamwork. Jake brought cedar planks and built a sturdy frame, shaping each birdhouse like a tiny cabin. Lila painted them in soft pastels, mint green, lavender, coral, with intricate details like shutters and flower boxes. I wired fairy lights and rigged the seed dispenser, a contraption I cobbled together from an old cereal container and a timer. Mrs. Larson kept us fed with cookies and kept watch for Karen, who'd been sniffing around. Once she stopped by, peering over my fence. "What's all this noise, Mia?" she snapped. I grinned. "Just gardening, Karen. You'll love it." She huffed and left, probably plotting her next move. Building the village wasn't easy. The frame wobbled until Jake reinforced it, and my first attempt at the seed dispenser jammed, spilling birdseed everywhere. One night we stayed up until 2 a.m., sanding wood and laughing over Karen's stories, like how she'd find Lila for a garish mailbox painted with sunflowers. Every setback made us more determined. This wasn't just about my birdhouse anymore. It was about everyone Karen had bullied. Lila added a tiny sign to one house, "Feather in." Jake carved a welcome mat for another. By the end, it looked like a fairy tale village, ready to charm birds and neighbors alike. The night before the reveal, we did a test run. The fairy lights twinkled, the seed dispenser dropped a perfect pile, and a pair of finches swooped in, chirping like they'd booked a 5-star stay. Lila squealed, Jake high-fived me, and even Mrs. Larson, who'd shuffled over, clapped. "Karen's gonna have a stroke," she cackled. I felt a surge of pride, not just for the birdhouses, but for what they represented. We turned her spite into something beautiful, just like your Morse code lights turned a grievance into a celebration. The neighborhood was buzzing, and Jake spread the word for a yard party at dusk, timed for when Karen got home from her HOA meeting. The next day, we set the trap. Lila hid the village behind a tarp, and Jake parked his truck to block Karen's view. I stood by the seed dispenser, heart racing, as her SUV rolled in. She stepped out, clipboard ready, her leopard print blouse screaming for attention. "What's this nonsense?" she barked, eyeing the crowd. That's when I pulled the tarp. The birdhouses sparkled, birds swooped in, and the neighbors gasped. Karen's jaw dropped. Then the seed dispenser kicked on, and a flock of sparrows dive-bombed her, drawn to the seed she'd unknowingly stepped in. She shrieked, flailing as feathers stuck to her hairspray, and the street roared with laughter. Karen looked like a soggy, feathered piñata, swatting at the sparrows as birdseed clung to her leopard print blouse. The neighbors' laughter rang out, phones flashing as they captured her meltdown. "This is assault," she wailed, stumbling backward, her sunglasses tumbling into the grass. I leaned against my oak tree, grinning. "Just birds being birds, Karen. Maybe don't step in their buffet next time." The crowd roared, and Jake shouted, "Check-ins at noon, Karen." Her glare could have melted steel, but she had no comeback. She grabbed her soggy clipboard and fled to her SUV, leaving a trail of feathers. The aftermath was sweeter than Lila's lemonade. Karen filed a complaint with the HOA, claiming my bird hazard violated safety rules, but our permit and pristine documentation shut her down. The board, fed up with her whining, even praised the birdhouses as a community asset. My yard became Maple Grove's new attraction. Kids named the houses Sparrow Suite, Finch Chalet. Teens posted TikToks with the fairy lights, and Mrs. Larson started a birdwatching club. Karen's house stayed silent, her blinds drawn. Rumor had it she was rethinking her HOA throne. Her reign of terror was crumbling, and my tiny Airbnb was the wrecking ball. But the real victory wasn't just dunking on Karen, it was what we built together. Jake started teaching kids carpentry, Lila offered free art classes, and I organized a seed drive for local wildlife. Your Christmas light project in Willow Creek showed me how a small act of defiance could spark joy, and now our birdhouses did the same. We weren't just neighbors. We were a family, forged in sawdust and spite. I even hung a new birdhouse on Karen's fence, a plain one, no frills, as a peace offering. She never acknowledged it, but a robin moved in, and that was enough. Looking back, I could have torn Karen down with anger, but I chose joy instead. Those birdhouses weren't just a jab at her rule book. They were a love letter to my community, like your Morse code lights turned a grudge into a party. I'd always built things for myself, but now I built for others. The kids who giggled at the birds, the neighbors who brought coffee to our work sessions, the street that felt alive again. Karen thought she could bully us into beige, but she only made us bolder. Every morning, when the sparrows sing and the lights glow, I smile, knowing we won. Last week, Lila painted a plaque for the oak tree, Mia's Bird Airbnb, where wings find home. It's sappy, but it's true. Honor means standing tall, even when someone like Karen tries to cut you down. Gratitude is seeing the hands that lift you up. Jake's hammer, Lila's brushes, Mrs. Larson's cookies. And kindness? It's building something beautiful, even for those who don't deserve it. Karen's still lurking, probably plotting her comeback. But she's no match for us. We've got Bird's heart in a story that'll chirp louder than her complaints. Let her try. The end.